4 years after September 11th, Osama bin Laden did something no modern fugitive had ever successfully done. He vanished. Not into a cave, not into the mountains, but into silence. American intelligence expected chatter, intercepted calls, financial trails, digital fingerprints. They got none. By 2002, bin Laden had become something far more dangerous than a terrorist leader. He became a ghost. Inside CIA headquarters, analysts stared at screens filled with data that led nowhere. Safe houses were raided. Couriers were followed. Leads collapsed. Every few months, a report would surface. Possible bin Laden sighting. And every time it ended the same way. Nothing. What the public didn't know was how close the CIA came to losing him forever. By the mid-2000s, many inside the intelligence community believed bin Laden was already dead. Killed by illness. Wounded beyond survival. Buried in the mountains. Others believed something worse. That he was alive, and winning. Because bin Laden understood something few enemies ever had. Technology cuts both ways. He didn't use phones. Didn't write emails. Didn't trust radios. Instead, he relied on human couriers. Men who memorized messages, traveled slowly, and left no trace behind. It was an intelligence nightmare. And it nearly worked. At Langley, frustration grew. The CIA was under pressure. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan drained resources. Political leaders wanted results. But the hunt continued. Quietly. Methodically. Then, in the late 2000s, something small changed. Not a phone call. Not a satellite image. A name surfaced. Not bin Laden's. Not even a known terrorist. Just a courier. At the time, it didn't look important. Later, it would become the most critical lead in modern intelligence history. But before that lead could matter, the CIA had to overcome something far more dangerous than bin Laden himself. Its own doubt. Because believing the target was still alive meant accepting one terrifying possibility. The world's most wanted man had been hiding in plain sight the entire time. And the clock was still ticking. The CIA didn't find bin Laden by tracking him. They found him by watching the one man no one was supposed to notice. And for years they did exactly that. Nothing. For most intelligence agencies, couriers are background noise. They don't make threats. They don't give speeches. They don't appear on watch lists. That's why this one almost slipped through. His name surfaced quietly during interrogations in the mid-2000s. Different detainees. Different locations. Same nickname. Analysts heard it more than once. And still, nothing happened. Because the name didn't come with coordinates. No photos. No phone numbers. No confirmed identity. Just a role. Trusted courier. Inside the CIA, that phrase triggered arguments. Some believed bin Laden had dozens. Others believed the courier system had collapsed years earlier. And a few analysts believed something else entirely. That bin Laden trusted only one. But belief isn't evidence. And intelligence agencies don't move on belief alone. So the name went into a file. Then a folder. Then an archive. Years passed. By the time the war in Iraq dominated attention, the courier's name was collecting digital dust. Until something changed. In 2007, a fragment surfaced. A detainee mentioned the courier again. This time with context. Not where he was, but how important he was. He speaks directly for bin Laden. That sentence rewired the room. Because leaders don't delegate that level of trust. Especially not someone who knows their location. Suddenly, analysts reopened old files. Cross-checked aliases. Mapped relationships. And discovered something unsettling. The courier didn't behave like other operatives. He didn't move quickly. He didn't contact many people. He didn't blend into chaos. He moved slowly. Deliberately. Predictably. Which meant one thing. He wasn't hiding. He was being careful. Surveillance teams were quietly reassigned. Not to chase bin Laden, but to identify a man who wanted nothing to do with attention. Took months, then years, until finally, in 2009, intelligence connected the dots. A real name, a real face, and movement. The courier wasn't in the mountains, wasn't in tribal regions, wasn't in a war zone. He was living in Pakistan, not running, not hiding, driving, shopping, returning home at night. And wherever he went, he never used a phone, never entered cyber cafes, never explained who he worked for. The CIA realized something terrifying. If they lost this man again, they would lose bin Laden forever. So they followed him, day after day, city after city, until one afternoon he made a turn that would change history. He drove into a quiet neighborhood. High walls, no internet, no trash out front, And he didn't leave. Welcome to Coziness Stories. If you enjoy calm, immersive stories like this, take a moment to subscribe and make yourself at home. The CIA had a house. They had a courier. They had years of footage. And still, they couldn't say his name out loud. The compound didn't look important. That was the problem. It sat in Abbottabad, Pakistan. A quiet city. Middle class. Less than a mile from a major military academy. No flags. No guards in uniform. No signs of urgency. Just high walls. Higher than anything else on the street. Topped with barbed wire. Inside CIA briefing rooms, analysts stared at satellite images. They measured shadows. Counted steps. Estimated room sizes. They noticed what wasn't there. No internet lines. No phone cables. No trash pickup. Garbage was burned inside the walls. Who burns trash in a modern city? People who don't want it analyzed. Surveillance teams watched from a safe distance. Day after day. Month after month. They logged routines. The courier entered. The courier left. The courier returned. But the tall man never did. He walked only inside the compound. Never stepped beyond the walls. Never appeared on the street. Analysts gave him a name. The Pacer. Because he walked in circles. In the same courtyard. At the same times. Every single day. But no camera could see his face clearly. No drone could identify him. No audio confirmed his voice. And intelligence lives in confirmation. Inside the CIA, debates grew sharp. One group believed it was bin Laden. The height matched. The behavior matched. The paranoia matched. Another group wasn't convinced. Why Abbottabad? Why near a military academy? Why a house this obvious? Some believed it was a decoy. Others feared a trap. Because if this was wrong, the consequences wouldn't be political. They would be catastrophic. The US had already been burned by bad intelligence before. No one wanted to repeat history. So they waited. For proof. Months turned into years. Surveillance continued. No mistakes. No calls. No slips. Until frustration reached the top. Analysts were asked a question that changed everything. How sure are you? Not certain. Not positive. How sure? And the answer came back quietly. We can't be. Because bin Laden had built his final defense perfectly. No digital footprint. No communication trail. No witnesses. He had reduced himself to a silhouette. And yet, one detail refused to be ignored. The courier never entered the house alone. Never left with guests. Never brought supplies beyond basics. Meaning someone else was being protected. Fed. Hidden. Someone important. The CIA reached a conclusion that terrified them. If they waited for certainty, they would wait forever. And bin Laden would die on his own terms. The question was no longer who lived there. It was whether the US was willing to act without proof. It wasn't what the house showed. It was what it refused to explain. And the longer analysts stared at it, the worse the answers became. From the outside, the compound looked ordinary. Concrete walls. Flat roof. Plain gate. But intelligence doesn't read buildings like civilians do. It dissects them. CIA analysts rebuilt the house digitally. Every window. Every stairwell. Every shadow at noon. And the math didn't work. The walls were too high for the neighborhood. The windows faced inward. The top floor had no balcony, just privacy screens. Who builds a third floor and refuses the view? Someone who doesn't want to be seen. No phone lines entered the house. No internet cables. No satellite dishes. In a modern Pakistani city that was unheard of. Then came the trash. Neighbors set bins out weekly. The compound never did. All waste was burned inside. Paper. Food. Everything. Analysts asked a simple question. What are they afraid someone will find? Thermal imagery revealed multiple residents. Women. Children. Men. But only one adult male never left. The Pacer. He walked the courtyard every afternoon. Same route. Same pace. Same isolation. No one spoke to him. No one touched him. He lived inside a self-made prison. The CIA began to realize something unsettling. This wasn't a hideout. It was a retirement plan. Bin Laden wasn't moving. Wasn't planning attacks. Wasn't coordinating operations. He was waiting. Waiting for the world to forget him. Waiting to die quietly. That possibility split the room. Some believed it meant urgency. Others believed it meant irrelevance. But intelligence history warned against one mistake. Underestimating a symbol. Because bin Laden didn't need to act. His existence alone inspired violence. Every day he lived free was propaganda. and the house made one thing clear. Whoever lived there believed the world was watching, and had still chosen this place, which meant one of two things. Either it was the safest hiding place imaginable, or it was bait. The CIA prepared a report. It went up the chain, slowly, carefully. It included probabilities, percentages, confidence levels. No name, no confirmation. Just one line that changed everything. If this is not bin Laden, then no one is. Silence followed. Because the house didn't just defy logic. It challenged the agency itself. And the next decision would not belong to analysts. It would belong to the president. If this story is drawing you in, subscribing to Coziness Stories helps you enjoy more tales like this every time you return. The most dangerous secret wasn't hiding in Pakistan. It was being hidden in Washington. And for weeks, the CIA didn't tell the president everything. The report didn't go straight to the Oval Office. That was intentional. Inside the CIA, memories still burned. 1998, faulty intelligence, missed chances, and worse, weapons of mass destruction. An intelligence failure so massive it reshaped the world. Careers ended, trust shattered, wars ignited. No one wanted that again. So before anyone spoke to the president, the agency did what it always does when the stakes are existential. They argued. One faction believed the house was undeniable. Another believed it was a catastrophic trap. Because if this wasn't bin Laden, and America struck anyway, the fallout would be irreversible. Pakistan was a nuclear-armed ally. An incursion without permission would be an act of war. And there was something else. Something darker. The CIA had been wrong about bin Laden before. Multiple times. They had missed him at Tora Bora. Missed him in Sudan. Missed him in Afghanistan. Each failure haunted Langley. This time they needed certainty. But certainty was impossible. There was no photo. No intercepted call. No voice confirmation. Only patterns. And patterns can lie. So instead of briefing the president directly, the CIA ran simulations. Red team versus blue team. Worst case outcomes. One scenario ended with SEALs captured. Another with a helicopter shot down over Pakistani territory. Another with the compound empty. Every scenario ended with global consequences. Meanwhile, the clock kept ticking. The courier remained active. The pacer walked daily. The bin Laden sensed exposure. He would vanish. Forever. Finally, CIA Director Leon Panetta made the call. He would brief the president. But not yet. First, they needed something more. A sign. A mistake. A crack. And then, the courier slipped. A Pakistani intelligence source reported unusual activity. Extra food deliveries. Seasonal clothing arriving in bulk. Someone inside wasn't planning to leave. They were planning to stay. That changed everything. Panetta walked into the Oval Office carrying a slim folder. No markings. No labels. He didn't say the name at first. He described the house. The walls. The silence. Then he looked at the president and said, "We believe this is the man responsible for 9/11. Obama didn't respond immediately. He asked one question. "How sure are you?" Panetta answered honestly. "We're not." Silence. Then Obama leaned back and said something no one expected. "Okay, show me everything." From that moment on, the hunt stopped being intelligence and became history in motion. If this went wrong, the United States would deny it ever happened. No rescue. No explanation. Just silence. Once the president said yes, everything changed. But nothing became official. There was no declaration. No announcement. No paper trail. Because if the mission failed, America would pretend it never existed. Inside a secure room, planners drew lines on satellite images. Abbottabad, a quiet military town. Pakistani army bases nearby. This wasn't hiding in the mountains. This was hiding in plain sight. And that made it worse. The CIA proposed one option. A stealth bombing run. Flatten the compound. Check the rubble later. Plain. Efficient. Obama rejected it immediately. We're not killing women and children to avoid risk. That left only one choice. A ground raid. Meaning boots on foreign soil. Meaning exposure. Meaning consequences. The Navy's most secret unit was briefed. DevGru. Not officially named. Not officially acknowledged. They were told one thing. You're going into Pakistan. If you're caught, you're on your own. No flags. No ID. No backup. 2 helicopters. One chance. The pilots trained for weeks. Flying low. Flying blind. Flying in silence. Mock compounds were built in Nevada. Walls matched to the inch. SEALs practiced clearing rooms they might never leave. Every step rehearsed. And yet, no plan survived the truth. Because the biggest unknown wasn't bin Laden. It was Pakistan. Would their radar detect the helicopters? Would their Air Force scramble jets? Would the SEALs be trapped between two armies? No one could answer. The mission was scheduled for a moonless night. Dark enough to hide, but not dark enough to escape fate. Inside the Situation Room, Obama sat with his advisors. Clinton, Panetta, Biden. No speeches, no bravado, just probability. Panetta broke it down. There's a real chance this ends in disaster. Obama nodded. What's the percentage? Panetta hesitated. 50-50. Silence. Then Obama said, that was it. The order moved quietly. Across oceans, across time zones. In Afghanistan, the helicopters lifted off. Rotors whispering instead of roaring. No one spoke, because everyone knew, if one thing failed, this would be remembered as the most reckless decision of a presidency. As the helicopters crossed into Pakistani airspace, one of them started to wobble, and no one in Washington knew yet that the mission was already breaking apart. Before a single shot was fired, the mission was already failing, and everyone inside the helicopter knew it. The compound rose out of the darkness exactly where intelligence said it would be. High walls, inner courtyard, no lights. Perfect, too perfect. The first helicopter hovered into position. Slow, controlled, silent. Then the air changed. Hot walls trapped the rotor wash. The night turned unstable. The pilot felt it first, a sudden loss of lift. The helicopter started to sink. Inside, SEALs tightened grips. Weapons ready. No panic. Training kicked in. The pilot tried to pull up. Nothing. The tail clipped the compound wall. Metal screamed. The helicopter slammed into the courtyard. Not an explosion. Not a crash. A violent, bone-shaking impact. Dust filled the air. The rotors shattered. For one frozen second, no one moved. Then the team reacted. They were alive. But the plan was dead. Inside the compound, lights flicked on. Shadows moved behind windows. Dogs barked. Someone screamed. The second helicopter hovered above the chaos, its pilot watching everything go wrong. Abort? No. There was no abort anymore. The downed helicopter was compromised. Stealth was gone. Surprise was bleeding out by the second. A SEAL radioed in. Chalk 1 is down. Repeat, aircraft down. No casualties. In Washington, no one heard it yet. Inside the compound, the SEALs blew the doors. Room by room. Gunfire cracked the silence. Women screamed. Children cried. Targets neutralized. But not him. They moved fast. Faster than rehearsed. Because now every second mattered. The wrecked helicopter was evidence. If Pakistani forces arrived, the entire operation would unravel. Inside the compound, a man peeked from a doorway. A courier. He ran. He didn't get far. Another body hit the floor. Up the stairs. Second level. The SEALs climbed toward the third floor. Toward the only room that mattered. And somewhere above them, Osama bin Laden heard the noise. He wasn't asleep. He was waiting. You're listening to Coziness Stories. Subscribe now so you don't miss the next story waiting for you. He wasn't shouting orders. He wasn't running. When the door opened, Osama bin Laden was standing perfectly still. The staircase was narrow. Concrete walls. No windows. Every step echoed. Third floor. The SEAL at point raised his rifle. The door was ajar. Just an inch. Movement inside. A woman stepped into view. She rushed forward. The SEAL fired not to kill. She fell wounded, screaming. Behind her, he appeared. Tall, thin, gray beard. For a fraction of a second, the room went silent. The face matched every photo, every sketch, every grainy intelligence image burned into memory. There was no doubt. Osama bin Laden. He didn't raise a weapon. He didn't surrender. He turned. And that was enough. 2 shots. Center mass. He fell backward into the darkness of the room. A third shot. Final. The world's most wanted man was dead. But the mission wasn't over. Not even close. The SEALs moved in immediately. Photographs. Facial recognition. DNA swabs. A body bag appeared. No celebration. No relief. Only urgency. Because outside the compound, the clock was screaming. Pakistani radar would pick them up soon. And the helicopter wreckage? Still sitting in the courtyard. A classified nightmare. Orders crackled through headsets. Prepare exfil. We are burning the bird. Explosives were planted. The downed helicopter was reduced to scrap. Nothing usable. Nothing traceable. The second helicopter landed. The body was loaded. Hard drives. Documents. Notebooks. Decades of secrets stuffed into bags. The SEALs lifted off. Just as Pakistani jets scrambled. They crossed the border at full speed. No one spoke. They knew what they had done. But the hardest part wasn't the kill. It was what came next. Because now, someone had to tell the world. And someone had to explain why the body would never be seen. There would be no press conference. No body shown. No public proof. And that single decision would ignite conspiracy theories that still haven't died. The helicopters landed on the tarmac in Afghanistan just before dawn. No cameras. No applause. Only men walking off with their heads down. Inside a secure hangar, the body was transferred. Medical officers began the process. DNA testing. Samples flown separately. Results came back fast. Over 99.9% certainty. Osama bin Laden was dead. In Washington, the president was awakened. The words were simple. We got him. But what followed wasn't simple at all. Because the question wasn't if he was dead. It was what to do with the body. Pentagon lawyers. White House advisors. Intelligence chiefs. All arguing. If they buried him on land, the grave would become a shrine. If they released photos, they'd inflame violence worldwide. If they kept the body, they'd violate international norms. Every option carried consequences. And then the decision was made. Burial at sea. Within 24 hours. According to Islamic tradition. No marked grave. No rallying point. The body was flown to an aircraft carrier in the Arabian Sea. Wrapped. Prepared. A brief ceremony. No speeches. No flags. Just a quiet acknowledgement of history. Then, the body slipped beneath the waves. Gone. Forever. At 11:35 p.m. Eastern Time, the president stepped in front of cameras. The nation held its breath. Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden. Cheers erupted. In New York, at Ground Zero, people cried. People screamed. People hugged strangers. But almost immediately, doubt followed. No photos? No body? No independent confirmation? Conspiracy theories exploded overnight. Fake death. Body double. Still alive. But behind closed doors, intelligence agencies were already moving. Because the real treasure wasn't the body. It was what they carried out of that house. Hard drives. Thumb drives. Handwritten notes. A digital roadmap of terror. And what they found inside would reshape counterterrorism forever. They didn't just kill a man that night. They cracked open a vault. And what was inside terrified the people who found it. The evidence bags were sealed before sunrise. Every item logged. Every fingerprint photographed. Every device handled like a bomb. Because in a world run by data, information is deadlier than bullets. Inside bin Laden's compound, SEALs had taken everything that could store a memory. Laptops. External hard drives. USB sticks hidden in drawers. CDs stuffed inside books. Handwritten journals in plastic wrap. By the time the helicopters left, they carried the largest intelligence haul in counterterrorism history. Analysts expected chaos. Encrypted files. Unreadable code. Digital booby traps. Instead, they found order. Bin Laden wasn't hiding. He was managing. Emails drafted but never sent. Messages passed through couriers. Detailed reports on global terror cells. Spreadsheets tracking money. Even letters to family members. He wasn't a ghost. He was a CEO. Running a decentralized global network. One analyst stopped breathing mid-scan. Bin Laden was losing control. Regional leaders ignored him. Funding was drying up. Recruits were reckless. He wrote angrily about attacks killing Muslim civilians. He feared Al-Qaeda's name had become toxic. The myth was cracking. The mastermind of terror was frustrated, isolated, outdated. The uncomfortable truth. Another revelation cut deeper. Bin Laden wasn't hiding from the world. He was hiding from his own organization. He feared betrayal, feared leaks, feared drones. That's why no internet, no phone calls, no direct contact. Every message took weeks, sometimes months. He was a prisoner of his own legend. The files didn't stay secret. Not entirely. Intelligence agencies rewrote playbooks. They shifted focus. From chasing leaders, to breaking networks, From manhunts to financial warfare, from bombs to data. Cells collapsed quietly. Plots died before they formed. And something else happened. The myth of bin Laden began to fade. Because myths require mystery. And the files showed. He was human, aging, out of touch, afraid. At the bottom of one drive, a personal letter, unsent. Bin Laden wrote about legacy, about history, about how he'd be remembered. He feared becoming irrelevant. He feared dying forgotten. Ironically, the data ensured the opposite, but not in the way he imagined. The night bin Laden died, America exhaled. But the war didn't end. It evolved, quietly, permanently, and closer to home than anyone expected. The raid was over. The body was gone. But the aftermath had only begun. In the days following the announcement, crowds gathered, flags waved, chants filled the streets. Justice, many believed, had finally arrived. Yet inside intelligence briefings, no one celebrated for long. Because killing a symbol doesn't kill an idea. And ideas don't bleed. The US didn't stand down. It pivoted. The bin Laden raid proved something dangerous. That precision worked. That covert force could rewrite history overnight. And once that door opened, it never closed again. Special operations expanded. Drone programs escalated. Targeted killings became policy, not exception. Wars no longer needed declarations, just coordinates. With victory came questions. Hard ones. Was the raid an act of war? An execution? A violation of sovereignty? Congress debated. Court stayed quiet. Precedent was set without a vote. Future presidents would inherit that power. Unchecked. Uncomfortable. Permanent. The intelligence reforms didn't stop overseas. Surveillance expanded. Data collection normalized. Metadata mattered. Patterns mattered. Privacy became negotiable. All justified by one word: security. Americans traded invisibly. Freedom for protection. Many didn't notice. Some did. Very few could stop it. Al-Qaeda splintered. ISIS rose. More brutal. More theatrical. Less centralized. The enemy changed shape. The battlefield went digital. Radicalization moved online. Algorithms replaced recruiters. And terror learned how to scale. Bin Laden faded. Mentioned in textbooks, documentaries, anniversary headlines. But the systems built to find him, they remained. Refined. Repurposed. Waiting. The mission that proved America's power also proved its vulnerability. That one man, one compound, one failure could reshape decades. Bin Laden didn't win, but neither did peace. The war simply changed uniforms, and the cost is still being paid. They didn't bury a body that night. They buried a chapter of history and inherited something far heavier. The ocean closed over him without ceremony. No grave, no marker, no place to gather, just water and silence. The world was told it was over, but endings are rarely that clean. The operators returned quietly. No parades, no interviews, no names. They went back to families who couldn't ask questions, to nights interrupted by memories, to a mission that would never truly end. They had done everything right. Still, something lingered, because killing history doesn't erase it. It echoes inside the White House. A decision weighed heavier than the announcement. The order had been given, the outcome irreversible. Every future strike, every drone launch, every midnight raid would trace its lineage back to this night. Power once proven is hard to restrain. For years the narrative was simple. Good versus evil. Justice delivered. Closure achieved. But history is rarely that generous. The files showed complexity. The aftermath showed consequence. And time revealed the truth, that this wasn't an ending. It was a turning point. The war on terror didn't stop. It fragmented, expanded, mutated. From deserts to cities, from caves to clouds. The enemy learned. So did the hunters. And civilians, everywhere, lived in between. Osama bin Laden became a reference, a chapter heading, a cautionary tale. His face no longer feared, just remembered. But the systems built to stop him, they endured. Watching, collecting, waiting. Was it worth it? Justice demands yes. History hesitates, because the true legacy of that night was not a death, it was a precedent. And once history crosses that line, it never steps back. This story wasn't about one man. It was about what fear can build, what power can justify, and what nations become when survival rewrites the rules. Some truths remain classified. Others live quietly in policy. And a few only surface when we stop celebrating and start remembering. Thank you for spending this moment with Coziness Stories. Subscribe, rest easy, and I'll see you in the next story.